Can you hear the silence? Not the silence of peace, but that heavy quiet, the kind that echoes in the space between the constant beep of a machine and the muffled sound of distant footsteps in the hallway. Night has fallen in this hospital room, and with it, a loneliness that feels as if it has weight, a solitude that chills the bedsheets and magnifies every fear. Perhaps you feel like a name on a clipboard, a body in a bed, observed by machines, but invisible in your essence, in your soul that cries out for companionship, for a touch that is not clinical, for a voice that is not delivering a diagnosis. I know the pain that lives in that feeling of abandonment, in this forced isolation, where the hours drag on and the mind wanders into dark and frightening territories. But I want you to listen to me very carefully. This room, as sterile and cold as it may seem, is not a vacuum. You are not speaking to the walls. In this exact moment, a real presence, more real than the air you breathe, is here with you. It is a presence that cannot be measured by monitors, a peace that no medication can replicate. It is the calming presence. God is not on the outside, waiting for the sun to rise. He is here, beside you, in the silent watch of this long night. If you believe that you are not alone in this moment, that a higher power is watching over your rest and your soul, make a gesture of faith. Write these words in the comments below. Jesus is with me in this room. Let your act of typing be a prayer, a declaration that shatters the walls of loneliness and unites us in community, an army of souls watching over one another in thought and prayer. The journey to find true rest tonight begins with a promise, a divine whisper that has traveled across millennia to find you exactly where you are. This promise is our starting point, our anchor, and it is found in the book of Exodus, chapter 33, verse 14. Let the soft music that now begins to play fill every corner of this space. Do not see it as background sound, but as the very breath of God, soothing the atmosphere, preparing your heart to receive the peace He has promised. Beloved Father, may your presence, which is already in this place, become so real to the heart that hears me that all fear dissipates. May the sound of the machines transform into a lullaby under your sovereignty, and may the loneliness give way to the unshakable certainty of your companionship. Open this heart to receive your rest. Amen. Take a deep breath. Feel the air enter your lungs and then release it slowly. Let us begin this journey together, here and now, in this bed that will, for this night, become a sacred place. The passage we read, the promise from Exodus chapter 33, verse 14, is not just a beautiful phrase from an ancient book. It is a breath of life, a love letter written by God and addressed directly to you, to be read and felt on this lonely night. The promise says, "My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest." Let us unfold this gift, piece by piece, as one would open a treasure. First, understand the setting where these words were spoken. They were not whispered in a tranquil garden or a golden palace. They were declared in the middle of a desert. Moses, the man who heard them, was exhausted. He carried the weight of an entire people, a stubborn and frightened people, in the midst of a place of scarcity, danger, and uncertainty. He felt profoundly alone in his mission, overwhelmed by a responsibility that seemed too great for any human being. Perhaps you identify with this feeling. The hospital, in its own way, is a desert of white walls, of unfamiliar routines, of news that can be arid and difficult to swallow. You, too, carry a weight, the weight of uncertainty, the weight of physical pain, the weight of longing for home, for your own bed, for your life outside. You, like Moses, may be asking, how will I get through this? Where will I find strength? It is at this point of exhaustion, in this personal desert, that God draws near and makes the first part of the promise. My presence will go with you. Let us focus on this first clause, my presence. What does that mean, practically for you right now. Close your eyes for a moment, if you can. Forget the wires, the equipment, the tray of medications. Think about the word presence. A presence is not something you see with physical eyes, but something you feel with your soul. It is like feeling the warmth of the sun on your skin, even with your eyes closed. You do not see the sun, but you know it is there. The presence of God is like that. It is the calming presence. It does not cancel out the sound of the machines, but it overlays them like a deeper melody. It does not erase the pain in your body, but it offers a place of rest for your mind, so that the pain does not dominate your thoughts. In this moment, the presence of God is in the rhythm of your own breathing. Each inspiration is a gift from Him, an act of sustenance, a silent affirmation that He is still in control of your life. Every beat of your heart, whether strong or faint, is a note in the symphony of existence that He conducts. Do not look for angels with wings or thunderous voices. Look for His presence in the simplest things, in the gentle hand of a nurse who adjusts your pillow in the middle of the night, in the memory of a tight hug from someone who loves you, in a tear that rolls warm down your face, a tear that He sees and collects. His presence is that inexplicable strength that has kept you going until now, that gives you the courage to face tomorrow, even without knowing what it will bring. It is an invisible blanket, woven with threads of mercy and grace, covering you at this very instant. You are not just under a hospital sheet. You are under the mantle of God's presence. Now let us move to the second part of this promise. ... will go with you. These 4 words are perhaps the most important in the entire sentence. The presence of God is not static. It is not just visiting you tonight to then leave when the doctor arrives in the morning. The promise is one of motion, of continuous companionship. Will go with you. This means that when the door opens for a new test, His presence will go with you. When the needle comes to draw blood or administer medication, His presence will go with you. If you have to go to an operating room, He will not be waiting in the hallway. His presence will pass through those doors and be there, beside you, guiding the hands that care for you. This is a promise against the feeling of abandonment. In the journey of life, and especially in the journey of illness, there are stretches we must walk alone. No one can feel your pain for you. No one can face your fears for you. Your family loves you. Your friends care, but there comes a time, like now, in the middle of the night, when it is just you and the white ceiling. It is for this moment that the promise was created. You are not alone. The calming presence is a journeying companion. It walks beside you in the silent corridors of your soul. It sits on the edge of your bed when insomnia strikes. It holds your hand when a pang of fear grips your chest. Will go with you means He will not leave you halfway. He will accompany you through the entire process, from this dark night to the sunny morning that will surely come. He is the beginning, the middle, and the end of your crossing. To trust in this promise is to understand that your future, whether it is 1 hour, 1 day, or 50 years, is already immersed in the unceasing companionship of God. And this brings us, finally, to the glorious destination of this promise. ... and I will give you rest. Notice carefully, He does not say, I will give you healing, although He can heal. He does not say, I will remove the problem, although He can remove it. The primary promise, the direct consequence of His presence, is rest. And what is this rest? It is certainly not just physical sleep, which in this environment can be fitful, light, and hard to come by. Many people sleep, but do not rest. Many shut down their bodies, but their minds continue to run a marathon of anxiety and worry. The rest that God promises is much deeper. It is the rest of the soul. It is the rest that comes from ceasing to strive. It is letting go of the reins. It is surrendering the weapons of worry, of fear, of control. It is the peace that comes when you finally recline into the arms of a higher power, and trust that He is in command, even when everything seems out of control. To rest here is an act of faith. It is to say, God, I do not understand the why. I do not know the how. I cannot see the when, but I trust in you. I trust that your presence is with me, and because of that, I can stop struggling. I can quiet my soul. It is the permission you give yourself to stop trying to solve everything in your head. It is the freedom from having to be strong all the time. In His presence, you can be weak, for His strength is made perfect in your weakness. Think of a small child, feverish in the middle of the night. The child is crying, frightened, uncomfortable. But then, a parent picks the child up. The medicine has not yet taken full effect. The fever has not instantly broken, but something changes. In the secure embrace, in the warmth of the familiar body, in the sound of the soothing voice, the child stops fighting. Often, the child sighs and falls asleep, not because the problem has vanished, but because the child feels safe. The child has found rest in the midst of tribulation. This is the rest that God is offering you now. He is picking you up. He is enveloping you with the calming presence. He is inviting you to release the weight, to hand over your worries, and to simply trust in His fatherly care. So tonight, your goal is not to fight against the insomnia or the pain. Your goal is to practice rest. How? Begin with your breathing. Breathe in deeply, and as you release the air, imagine that you are handing God a worry. Say in your heart, Lord, I give you the fear of the diagnosis. Breathe again, and as you release the air, say, I give you the longing for home. One more time, I give you the pain in this body. With each exhalation, feel yourself becoming a little lighter. You are not getting rid of the problems. You are transferring their weight to someone who is strong enough to carry them. This is the exercise of rest. It is the practice of dwelling in the promise. His presence is already here. It is already walking with you. Rest, therefore, is not something you need to achieve, but something you need to accept. It is a gift that already has your name on it, waiting to be opened. Allow yourself to receive. Allow the truth of this ancient promise to become your reality tonight. The presence of God is with you, and He Himself, the Creator of the universe, will give you rest. Calm your heart. You are safe. You are cared for. You are loved. In the last chapter, we unwrapped God's promise like a treasure. We saw that His presence is real, active, and that its purpose is to give us rest. And perhaps, upon hearing that, a part of you felt an immense relief, a warmth of hope. But maybe another part, the most honest and tired part, is right now whispering a difficult question. But how? How do I attain this rest? I understand the promise, but my mind is still racing. I close my eyes to pray, and I am bombarded with images, with worries, with what-ifs. How do I turn off this anxiety machine that lives inside me? If this is your struggle, know that you are not alone. This is the most human battle there is, the distance between knowing the truth and feeling the truth. It is across this bridge that we will now walk together. Let us revisit the promise of Exodus 33, verse 14, but from a different angle. The phrase says, ... and I will give you rest. Pay attention to the first word, I. It does not say, and you will find rest if you try hard enough. It does not say, and you will build your own rest with positive thoughts. The sentence is clear. The action originates from Him. Rest is not your achievement, it is His gift. This is the first and most liberating truth we need to understand. You do not have to manufacture peace. You do not have to fight to feel peaceful. Your only task, your one sacred job tonight, is to learn how to receive what is already being offered. Imagine you are drowning in a turbulent sea. The waves of fear, of pain, of uncertainty toss you from side to side. You struggle, expending all your energy just trying to keep your head above water. It is exhausting. Then, a rescuer approaches in a secure boat and extends a hand to you. Rest will not come from you learning to swim better against the waves. Rest will come the moment you stop struggling and take the outstretched hand. Your strength will not save you. Your surrender will. God's promise is that outstretched hand. The rest He offers is the boat. Our struggle is that, so often, we are so accustomed to flailing that we do not realize help has arrived. We keep trying to fight the waves, even with the rescuer right beside us. The calming presence does not work like a switch that turns off the storm. It works like an anchor that steadies the boat in the middle of it. The waves may continue. The winds may blow. But the anchor holds you secure. Your heart might even sway with emotion, but you will not drift away. Your mind, in this moment, is this stormy sea. Every thought about the future, every painful memory, every doubt about the treatment is a wave. Trying to suppress these thoughts by sheer force of will is like trying to flatten the ocean with your hands. It is impossible and frustrating. God's invitation is not for you to calm your mind. The invitation is for you to rest in spite of your agitated mind. So, how do we do this practically? How do we take the outstretched hand? Through a powerful spiritual principle called surrender. Surrendering is not giving up. Giving up is saying, I cannot take it anymore. All is lost. Surrendering is saying, I cannot take it anymore, so I am handing over control to the one who can. It is an act of immense strength and wisdom. Let us make this practical with steps you can take right now, there in your bed. The first step of surrender is to name your burdens. Vague fear is a formless monster in the dark, but a named fear is something we can face and hand over. I want you to identify, one by one, the weights that are on your shoulders tonight. You do not need to say them aloud. Just let them come to your mind, before God. Begin with the silent phrase, Lord, what is stealing my peace is, perhaps it is the fear of a test result. Let that fear come. Look at it. Name it. It is the fear of the result. Perhaps it is worry for your family outside. How are they? Are they worried? Name it. It is the worry for my loved ones. Perhaps it is the physical pain, constant and irritating. Name it. It is this pain that gives me no peace. Continue this process. The hospital bill. The uncertainty about the future of your job. The feeling of being a burden. One by one, bring these fears and worries into the light of your awareness. Do not rush. God is not in a hurry. He is the most patient listener there is. Now that you have named these weights, let us move to the second step, the divine exchange. Surrender is not a vacuum. You do not just let something go. You exchange it for something else. The Bible teaches us that we can trade our weakness for His strength, our mourning for the oil of joy, our ashes for a crown. Tonight, the exchange He offers you is clear. You give Him your burdens, and He gives you His rest. Visualize this as concretely as you can. Imagine that each worry you named is a heavy, dark stone in your hands. Feel their weight, their rough texture. Now, in an act of imagination and faith, see the hands of Jesus extended toward you. One by one, place each stone in His hands. Jesus, I give you this stone of fear about the future. Feel your own hands becoming lighter. I give you this stone of physical pain. See Him receiving, without effort, what is so heavy for you. I give you this stone of loneliness. Continue until your hands are empty. And now, the most important part, see Him placing something back into your hands. It is not stones. It is a feather of light. It is His peace. It is His rest. Receive it. Feel its lightness. The exchange has been made. You have given what harmed you, and you have received what heals you. This exercise is not magic. It is a form of prayer. It is a way of making real in your spirit what is already true in the kingdom of God. This is how we practice faith here, in our space of the calming presence. We transform abstract truths into felt experiences. The third step is the maintenance of rest through anchoring. For your mind, out of habit, will try to take the stones back. A wave of anxiety will come and say, "But what about the test result?" A thought will return. "Will I be able to pay for all this?" This is natural. When it happens, you do not need to panic or blame yourself for not having enough faith. You simply need to remember your anchor. Your anchor is the promise. You can turn it into a short, powerful phrase, a mantra for your soul. Something like, "His presence is with me. His rest is mine." Or simply, "I am being cared for." Or, "He will give me rest." Choose the phrase that resonates most in your heart. And every time a wave of worry comes, instead of fighting with it, you simply calmly and firmly repeat your anchor. The thought comes, "I am so alone." You respond in your spirit, "His presence is with me." The mind insists, "I will not be able to sleep with this pain." You anchor again, "He will give me rest." It is not a battle of arguments. It is an act of redirection. You are gently guiding your attention away from the problem and back to the promise. Each repetition is like one more link in the chain that binds you to the solid rock that is God. Over time, the space between the waves of anxiety will grow longer. Your mind will learn, little by little, that it no longer needs to struggle because the boat is secure. Rest will become your natural state, and anxiety, the unwelcome visitor that no longer finds a place to stay. This journey we are taking together, night after night, is the mission of our channel, the calming presence. This is not just a video. It is a refuge. It is a hospital for the soul. If you feel that this place can be a safe harbor for your spirit in the difficult days and nights, I want to extend a heartfelt invitation to subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell. By doing so, you are not just supporting this work, but you are saying yes to continuing this journey of strengthening. You are ensuring that a word of comfort and hope can always find you, making sure that you never again have to feel completely alone in your darkest hours. Join our community of resilient souls. We are waiting for you. Our last time together was an invitation to surrender, to a divine exchange where we place our fears in God's hands and receive His rest in return. It is an exercise of faith that brings relief. But I must be honest with you. There will be nights, and perhaps this is one of them, when you will do all of this. You will try to surrender. You will name your fears. You will reach for the anchor of the promise, and the response you will feel? Silence. A deep, dense silence, one that can be mistaken for absence. It is in this moment that faith faces its most severe test. Your soul may cry out, "Lord, I am here. I am calling out. Where are you? Why do you not answer me?" This feeling is one of the most arid deserts of the spiritual journey. It is the pain of feeling ignored by the one who is your only hope. I want you to know that this pain is valid. And more importantly, I want you to know that the silence of God is not, in any way, a sign of abandonment. On the contrary, it can be an invitation to the deepest level of intimacy one can have with Him. Let us look at our anchor passage, Exodus 33, verse 14, in a new light. This time, let us focus on who is speaking. "My presence will go with you." Who is this I who makes the promise? This is the God who created the stars or the breath, the God who parted the Red Sea, the God whose power is so vast that our minds can barely scratch the surface of His glory. But this same God, in an unfathomable mystery of love, chose to become vulnerable. He made Himself human in Jesus Christ. And this Jesus, hanging on a cross, experienced the most devastating silence of all. He cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Jesus, the very Son of God, knew firsthand the feeling of crying out and hearing only silence in reply. What does this mean for you tonight in this hospital bed? It means that when you feel alone and unheard, you are not in a place where Jesus has not been. He understands. He comprehends your anguish on a level that no one else can. The silence you experience is not the silence of a distant, indifferent God. It is the silence of a God who has already walked through your valley of shadows and knows exactly how you feel. Therefore, his silence is never an act of punishment or neglect. It is always an act of purpose. The calming presence is not always a loud presence. Sometimes its most powerful way of calming is through the silence that invites us to trust on a deeper level. We, as human beings, are conditioned to interpret silence as something negative. In a conversation, a prolonged silence can signify awkwardness or anger. In a relationship, it can mean distance. But in the kingdom of God, silence has a different meaning. We need to learn to distinguish the silence of absence from the silence of intimacy. Think about the people with whom you are most intimate in your life. Your parents, your spouse, a sibling, a best friend. With these people, you do not need to fill every moment with words. You can be together in a room in silence, each reading a book or simply resting, and the presence of one another is enough. It is a comfortable silence, full of love and acceptance. The silence of God is like that. It is an invitation to stop seeking answers and to simply rest in the presence of the one who is the answer. He is telling you, you do not need a sign. You do not need an overwhelming feeling. You just need me, and I am already here. Rest in my silent companionship. But why? Why would a God who loves us allow us to go through these periods of silence, especially when we are so fragile? The first reason is to strengthen the roots of our faith. A faith that is sustained only by feelings and immediate answers is a shallow faith. It is like a plant that is watered every day, but only on the surface of the soil. Its roots never need to grow deep, but when a period of drought, of silence comes, the plant is forced to deepen its roots, to seek water in aquifers it never knew existed. God's silence forces us to do the same. It compels us to stop depending on the feeling of His presence and to start depending on the fact of His promise. Our peace cannot be anchored in what we feel, because feelings are like the weather. They change constantly. Our peace must be anchored in what we know, in the unchanging truth of His word. My presence will go with you. That is a fact, not a feeling. The silence trains you to build your house on this rock, and not on the shifting sands of your emotions. The second purpose of silence is to purify our motives. Often, without realizing it, we seek God not for who He is, but for what He can give us: healing, relief, the solution to a problem. We seek the blessings more than the blesser. The divine silence has a powerful way of burning away these secondary motivations. When the answers do not come, when the healing is delayed, when the relief seems distant, we are confronted with the question, will I still seek God if He does not give me what I want? It is at that moment that our relationship with Him can move from being transactional to being truly relational. We begin to seek Him not for His hands full of gifts, but for His face full of love. The silence invites us to love God for Himself and not for the things He does. And discovering that His silent presence is enough for us is the greatest discovery a soul can make. The third purpose of silence is to sharpen our spiritual hearing. We frequently ask God to speak, but we already have a script prepared for how we want Him to answer. If the answer does not come in the expected way, we think He has not spoken. But God's silence in one area may be His way of making us pay attention to another. Perhaps He is not speaking through an overwhelming feeling of peace, but He is speaking through the strength you did not know you had to endure one more day. Perhaps He is not whispering audible words, but He is shouting His love through the competence of the medical team. Perhaps His voice is not in a thunderclap, but in the simple fact that despite everything, your heart continues to beat. The silence forces us to look for God in common places, in the details of daily life, and in doing so, we discover that He has been speaking all along, but we were not tuned to the right frequency. So what should you do when the silence of God weighs upon you tonight? First, do not despair. Do not think you have done something wrong. Instead, reinterpret the silence. See it not as a closed door, but as an invitation to draw closer. Second, be honest with Him. Tell Him how you feel. Say, Lord, your silence is painful. I feel alone, but I choose to trust you anyway. I choose to believe that you are here, even if I do not feel you. Honesty opens doors to intimacy. Third, and most importantly, cling to the promise. The promise was not, you will always feel me. The promise was, my presence will go with you. It is a declaration of fact. Trust in the character of the one who promised. He is faithful. He does not lie. If He said He would be with you, He is with you, period. His presence does not depend on your perception of it. Embrace, therefore, this silent companionship. Let the calming presence fill this room, not with noise, but with a quiet, profound peace. A peace that comes not from the absence of problems, but from the certain and secure presence of your God. He is watching over your sleep. He is guarding your soul, even in the silence, especially in the silence. Up to this point in our journey, we have explored the promise of God's presence, learned the art of surrendering our burdens, and navigated the challenging silence that sometimes accompanies our faith. We have focused intensely on the peace of the soul, the calm of the spirit. But now, I want to invite you to take that peace one step further. I want us to begin seeing God's rest not just as an emotional comfort, but as a therapeutic force, a divine medicine for your physical body. For you are not just a soul inhabiting a body. You are an integrated being, and what touches your spirit invariably touches your flesh. A starting point for many people in a hospital bed is frustration with their own body. The body, which was once a vehicle for life, a partner on the journey, suddenly becomes a source of pain, a prison of limitations, perhaps even a betrayer. You want to get up, and you cannot. You want to feel well, and you cannot. Every pang, every weakness, every beep of the monitor reminds you of your vulnerability. And this constant fight against your own physical limitations is exhausting. It consumes precious energy that could be used for healing. It is here, on this physical battlefield, that God's promise echoes with a new and powerful meaning. ... and I will give you rest. Let us analyze the word rest from a healing perspective. In the original language of the promise, the Hebrew word for rest, nuach, carries the idea of settling down, of dwelling, of remaining in a place of tranquility. It is not just the absence of activity, but the presence of peace. Modern science has begun to understand what spiritual wisdom has always known. A state of constant anxiety, fear, and stress floods our body with hormones like cortisol. In small doses, they help us react to danger, but in prolonged doses, like those we experience in a health crisis, they can suppress the immune system, increase inflammation, and slow down the healing processes. In other words, fighting, worrying, and being afraid are not just unpleasant. They can actively work against your physical recovery. When God offers you rest, He is offering you healing on a cellular level. He is inviting you to move out of a state of fight or flight and into a state of rest and restore. By accepting the rest of His presence, you are, in practice, changing your body's chemistry. You are creating the ideal internal atmosphere for healing to occur. The calming presence is not a mystical force that ignores biology. It is a force that works in harmony with it. The spiritual rest you cultivate translates into a relaxation of your nervous system. Your muscles, which may be tense from pain and worry, begin to release. Your breathing, perhaps shallow and anxious, deepens and calms. Your blood pressure may stabilize. This rest that comes through faith does not replace the work of doctors and medicine, but it enhances it. It prepares the soil of your body so that the seeds of medicine can flourish in the best possible way. Therefore, resting in God is not an act of laziness or passive resignation. It is one of the wisest and most proactive things you can do for your own health. It is a conscious and spiritual participation in your healing process. It is you saying to your body, you can relax. You can focus on healing. I will no longer flood you with fear and panic. We are safe. God is in control. Let us turn this truth into a conscious practice right now. I want to guide you in an exercise of breathing and blessing. If it is comfortable for you, close your eyes. Breathe deeply, not just with your chest, but with your diaphragm, feeling your abdomen expand. And as you inhale, do not just imagine you are pulling in air. Imagine you are inhaling the very peace of God, the calming presence. Imagine this peace as a golden or light blue light filling your lungs. Now, as you exhale, do not just release carbon dioxide. Release the tension. Surrender the pain. Visualize a gray smoke leaving you, carrying away the discomfort and anxiety. Do this again. Inhale the peace of God. Feel it entering your bloodstream, traveling to every part of your body. Direct that light of peace to the area that most needs healing. If it is your heart, see this light enveloping it, calming its rhythm. If it is a surgical wound, see this golden light soothing the inflammation, nourishing the tissues, accelerating cellular regeneration. Exhale the fear of recovery. Exhale the impatience. Breathe in the restorative presence of God. Exhale the struggle. This simple act of conscious breathing is a prayer without words. It is a way of aligning every cell in your body with the truth that God is with you, working in you and for you. Now, let us move to the second part of this exercise, the blessing. Instead of cursing your body for the pain it causes you, let us bless it. In your heart, let us pray together for this temporary home that is your body. Begin by giving thanks. Lord, thank you for this body. Even in its weakness, it has fought bravely for me. Thank you for every organ that is functioning perfectly right now. And then begin to bless. In the name of Jesus, I bless my heart, that it may beat with perfect strength and rhythm. I bless my lungs, that they may receive the oxygen of life abundantly. I bless my immune system, that it may be a strong and intelligent army, defending my body from all infection and working in perfect harmony. I bless the hands of the doctors and nurses who care for me. I bless every medication that enters my body, that it may act with power and precision without negative side effects. I bless the area of my illness, and I declare over it the peace and restoration of God. This practice radically changes your perspective. You cease to be a victim of your body and become a steward of it, a partner with God in the process of restoration. You are using your spiritual authority to align your physical reality with the will of God, which is your health and your wholeness. The rest He gives you is the platform for this healing. First, you rest in His presence, and from that place of peace, you can release faith for your physical healing. There is no striving in this, no tension. It is a gentle flow that is born of trust. You are not trying to convince God to heal you. You are simply agreeing with the healing power that already resides in His presence. If this journey so far has brought a moment of peace to your heart or a breath of hope to your night, know that this is our purpose. Here at the Calming Presence, we believe that no one should have to face their battles alone. If you wish to continue receiving these prayers and reflections, which can be a balm for the soul in times of greatest need, I encourage you to subscribe to our channel. Clicking the subscription button is more than just a click. It is a step toward ensuring you always have a refuge to return to when the darkness tries to surround you or the loneliness tries to convince you that you have been forgotten. Become part of our family of souls who seek strength and rest in the presence of God. We have walked through deep valleys to get here. We have spoken of the promise of God's presence, of the practice of surrender, of the faith that survives the silence, and of the rest that actively participates in the healing of our body. Each step has been a deeper dive into the truth that you are not alone. But now, I want to propose a change in perspective, one of the most radical and powerful in the entire spiritual journey. What if this hospital room, this place that seems to be one of weakness, waiting, and confinement, could become something more? What if this bed, which has been a place of pain and discomfort, could be transformed into an altar? The starting point for this thought is often a feeling of uselessness. When we are sick, it is easy to feel that life is happening out there without us. The world keeps spinning, people keep working, living, progressing, and we are here, stationary, trapped in a routine of measurements, medications, and waiting. Impatience knocks at the door, and with it, the agonizing question, what is the purpose of this? I am just wasting time. I am a burden. My life is on pause. This feeling is a thief of hope. But the truth I want to share with you is that your life is not on pause. It has simply changed scenery. And in this new setting, you have been invited to one of the noblest and most powerful activities a human being can perform: worship. When we think of worship, our minds usually take us to a church, to a service with loud music, people singing, hands raised. And that is indeed a beautiful form of worship. But that is only a small expression of something much greater. Worship, in its purest essence, is any act, thought, or feeling that acknowledges the sovereignty and goodness of God and directs our heart toward Him. Worship is our side of the conversation and the friendship with God. He gives us His presence, and we respond with our attention, with our praise. And the good news is that true worship does not depend on place, health, physical strength, or a beautiful voice. It depends only on a willing heart. If God is present with you in this room, and we have already established that He is, then this room is a sacred place. The calming presence does not just visit you in this place. It sanctifies it. And the natural response of the human heart to the holiness of God is worship. So, how can we worship God from a hospital bed? Let us discover together the forms of praise that are perfectly within your reach right now. The first and most accessible form of worship is gratitude. I know it may seem like a contradiction. To be grateful in a place of pain? Yes, it is not gratitude for the illness, but gratitude in spite of the illness. It is an exercise of spiritual discipline, an act of training your eyes to find the light, even when the room seems dark. Gratitude is a powerful weapon against despair, because it forces us to recognize that even in the midst of our greatest difficulty, the grace of God is still present. Start small. In your heart right now, find one thing you can be grateful for. It could be the pillow that supports your head. It could be the glass of fresh water beside your bed. It could be the fact that, in this exact moment, you are not feeling pain. It could be the sunlight streaming through the window. It could be the memory of the face of someone who loves you. Make this a secret game, a treasure hunt for grace. Every hour, find a new thing. Lord, thank you for this warm blanket. Lord, thank you for the patient nurse who helped me. Lord, thank you for the air that fills my lungs, even if with difficulty. Each of these small declarations of gratitude is a hymn of praise. It is you telling heaven and earth that although your situation is difficult, your God is still good. And every time you do this, you steal a little of the power that bitterness and self-pity want to have over your soul. You are worshiping God with your memory and with your attention. The second form of worship in bed is trust. Every time a wave of fear about the future comes, and you, instead of drowning in it, choose to hold on to the anchor of God's promise, you are worshiping. Trust is one of the purest forms of praise because it glorifies the character of God. When you trust, you are declaring, I do not know what the future holds, but I know who holds the future. And because I know his character, that he is good, faithful, and all-powerful, I choose to rest. Every act of surrender, every worry you place in his hands, is a shout of worship that says, you are greater than my fear. You are more sovereign than my diagnosis. To worship God with your trust is one of the bravest things you can do. The third form is the worship of kindness. When we are in pain and feeling unwell, it is natural to become irritable, focused on ourselves. But even here, there is an opportunity to worship. Every please and thank you said to a healthcare professional, even when you are exhausted. Every smile, however faint. Every word of encouragement you might be able to give to another patient, if you have the chance. Every act of patience when things do not happen on your schedule. All of this is worship. Why? Because you are reflecting the character of God, his goodness, his patience, his grace to the people around you. You transform your small space from a center of care consumption into a source of grace emanation. Your bed becomes a lighthouse, and your conduct, a silent sermon on the goodness of the God in whom you trust. And this leads us to the central metaphor, this bed as an altar. In biblical tradition, an altar was a meeting place between the human and the divine. It was a place of sacrifice. People brought something of value to the altar to give to God. Today, you are on an altar. And what can you offer? You can offer your pain. You can offer your weakness. You can offer your time of waiting. You can offer your dreams and plans that were interrupted. You can, as the Apostle Paul teaches us in Romans chapter 12, offer your own body as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This means that your suffering does not have to be in vain. It can be consecrated, given to God with a purpose. You can pray, Lord, I did not choose this pain, but I place it on your altar. Use it for some good that I cannot see. Use this time of my weakness to teach me something I could not learn in my strength. Use this loneliness of mine to draw me closer to you. May my suffering today be my worship to you. When you do this, something changes. The pain does not disappear, but it gains new meaning. It ceases to be a meaningless torment and becomes a sacred offering. You cease to be a victim of circumstances and become a priest at your own altar, ministering to the Lord through your perseverance and your faith. In the previous chapter, we together transformed this bed into an altar, a place of sacred worship. By finding purpose in the present moment, we stripped away the power of impatience and uselessness. But inevitably, our mind, like a tireless traveler, projects forward into the unknown and often frightening territory of the after. And it is there, in the silence of 3 a.m, that a new set of giants often appears. They are the questions that begin with, what if? What if I do not fully recover? What if my life is never the same again? What if the pain comes back? What will tomorrow be like? The future, when viewed from a hospital bed, can seem like a dense, impenetrable fog, and the fear of what hides in that mist can be as paralyzing as the illness itself. Today, we will walk through that fog together, not with the intention of dispelling it with false assurances, but with the goal of lighting a lamp that can guide us through it. That lamp is called hope, and it is crucial that we understand the nature of biblical hope, as it is radically different from worldly optimism. Optimism is a feeling. Hope is a conviction. Optimism says, I hope things get better. I think everything will work out. It is a form of wishful thinking based on circumstances. Biblical hope, on the other hand, says, even if things do not get better in the way I imagine, I know that God is good and that He is in control, and therefore my soul is secure. Hope is not the absence of problems, but the presence of God in the midst of them. Hope, as Scripture says, is an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. And the beauty of an anchor is that it works best precisely when the sea is at its roughest. It does not stop the storm, but it ensures that the boat is not cast adrift. To cultivate this resilient hope, I want to offer you a new metaphor for your time here. Think of this phase of your life not as a waiting room, but as a winter season. In winter, the landscape can appear dead. The trees are bare, the ground is hard, visible growth ceases. It seems like a time of loss and dormancy, and yet it is in winter that vital, invisible processes take place. It is in the cold that the roots deepen, seeking nutrients and strengthening themselves. It is in the rest of winter that the earth accumulates the necessary energy for the explosion of life in spring. You are in your spiritual and physical winter. It may seem like nothing is happening, that you are just wasting time. But I assure you, beneath the surface of your situation, God is at work. And you, even without realizing it, are not just surviving this winter. You are sowing. Yes, you are a sower. Every day you spend here, every challenge you face with a drop of faith, every tear you surrender to God is a seed you are planting for your future. You may not see the fruit now, just as a farmer does not see the harvest on the day he casts the seed into the cold earth. But the law of sowing and reaping is an infallible spiritual law. Let us identify together some of the precious seeds you are sowing at this very moment. The first is the seed of patience. In our world of speed and instant gratification, patience is a rare and precious virtue, and there is no place that teaches patience more than a hospital. The wait for a result, the wait for the doctor's visit, the wait for the medicine to take effect, the slow wait for recovery. This forced patience can be seen as torture or as training. Every day you choose to trust in God's timing instead of surrendering to the despair of delay, you are planting a seed of patience. And this seed, when it sprouts, will produce in your life a fruit of immense resilience. You will become a less anxious person, more capable of enduring life's delays, wiser to understand that God's processes, though sometimes slow, are always perfect. The second is the seed of perspective. Illness has a brutal, but effective, way of burning away everything that is not essential in our lives. The small worries that once kept us awake are revealed to be utterly insignificant. The race for status, for possessions, for recognition loses all its shine when health is at stake. What remains? What is revealed is truly important. Faith, the love of family and friends, the beauty of a sunny day, the simple joy of breathing without assistance. You are, at this moment, receiving an intensive course on what really matters in life. This new and purified perspective is a seed of incalculable value. When you leave here, God willing, this seed will sprout and transform you into someone who lives more authentically, who loves more deeply, and who stresses much less over the trivialities of existence. Your pain today is buying your wisdom for tomorrow. The third is the seed of testimony. The story you are living now is not just yours. The way you face this trial, your struggle for faith amidst fear, your search for God's presence in solitude, all of this is writing a powerful story. It is a story of resilience. And one day, in the future, you will meet someone who is entering the same winter you are traversing now. And you will be able to look that person in the eyes and say, with the authority of one who has been there, I know how you feel, and I know that God is faithful. Your suffering today is becoming your ministry for tomorrow. Your pain is being transformed into a bridge to reach and heal others. God never wastes a hurt. He recycles it into glory and into help for others. Believe it. The seed of your testimony will feed many people in the future. And the most precious seed of all, the seed of intimacy with God. Normal life is noisy. It is full of distractions. It is hard to hear God's gentle voice amid the chaos. Here, in this forced silence, in this total dependence, you have a golden opportunity to know God in a way you may have known before. You are getting to know the God who sustains, the God who comforts, the God who is company in the darkness. The calming presence is not just a beautiful concept for you. It is becoming your lived reality. This deepened intimacy is the most powerful seed of all, for from it will sprout all the other fruits of a rich and meaningful spiritual life. Therefore, when the fear of the future comes to haunt you, shift your focus. Instead of looking into the fog of uncertainty, look at the seeds in your hands. Acknowledge the valuable work you are doing right now. You are not standing still. You are not wasting time. You are in the midst of a spiritual agricultural work of the highest importance. You are sowing in winter, trusting in the Lord of the harvest. And hope is born from this certainty. Spring will come. It may not come in the form or at the time you expect, but it will come. For he who promises is faithful. His presence, which calms you today, is the sure guarantee of your tomorrow. This hope that we sow, this trust in the God of springtime even during the winter, is a powerful anchor for the soul. It secures us in the certainty of God's care for our tomorrow. But even with this hope in our hearts, there is a subtle enemy that creeps through the cracks of loneliness, especially during the long hours of the night. It is the feeling of disconnection, the sense that the world has moved on and forgotten us. You see the city lights through the window. You hear the distant sound of life continuing, and you might feel as if you are on an island, invisible, with your struggle being fought in a parallel universe that no one else can truly see or understand. It is the pain of feeling forgotten. In this stage of our journey, I want us to combat this lie of loneliness with one of the most powerful and mysterious truths of our faith, the reality of spiritual communion and the power of prayer that connects us. You may feel physically alone in this room, but I want to affirm to you with all the conviction of my spirit that you are not spiritually alone. In this exact moment, you are the center of an invisible yet real network of love and power. You are the recipient of a force that passes through concrete walls, that travels faster than light, and that reaches you with a purpose, to sustain you. That force is prayer. The Bible tells us the story of the Apostle Peter, who was arrested and sentenced to death. He was in a maximum security cell, chained between two soldiers, with guards at the door. Humanly speaking, his situation was impossible. But the text of Acts, chapter 12, tells us something crucial. But the church was earnestly praying to God for him. The church was not there in the prison. They could not break down the gates or fight the guards. They were far away in a house, doing the only thing they could do, pray. And what happened? An angel of the Lord appeared in the cell. The chains fell from Peter's hands, the gates opened by themselves, and he walked out free. The divine intervention in the prison cell was a direct response to the continuous intercession in the prayer room. I want you to see yourself in this story. This hospital room is your temporary cell. Your physical limitations, the illness, the uncertainty, are your chains. But just as the church prayed for Peter, there is a church praying for you. Think of the people who love you, your family, your friends, the members of your faith community. Right now, even though they cannot be physically by your side, they are carrying you in their hearts and minds before God. Every time your name is whispered in a prayer, a spiritual force is released in your direction. Let us make this more real. I want to guide you in a visualization exercise. Take a deep breath and allow your imagination to become an instrument of your faith. Think of one person who you know loves you and prays for you. It could be your mother, your father, your spouse, a child, a friend. Now, imagine that person's prayer as a thread of light in a color that brings you peace. Perhaps a golden thread, warm and bright. See this thread of light leaving that person's heart, crossing the city, passing through the walls of this hospital, and reaching you gently wrapping around your body. Now, think of another person. Imagine their prayer as a thread of another color, perhaps silver or green like healing. See this thread joining the first, weaving another layer of light around you. Continue the exercise. Think of your group of friends, your church. See dozens, perhaps hundreds of threads of light of all colors moving toward you, coming from everywhere. See how they intertwine, forming no longer loose threads, but a mantle of light, a cocoon of prayer, a tapestry of love that covers you, warms you, and protects you. This is not a simple positive thinking exercise. It is an attempt to see with the eyes of the Spirit the reality of what is happening in the invisible realm. You are not alone. You are being covered, sustained, and strengthened by the prayers of those who love you. The calming presence does not only manifest directly from God to you. Often it manifests through His people, through the body of Christ that mobilizes in love. This invisible community is your rear guard. When your own faith falters, their faith sustains you. When you no longer have the strength to pray, their prayers become your strength. You are floating on an ocean of intercession. Rest in that. Allow yourself to be carried. Now, let us take it a step further, a step that will completely destroy the feeling of uselessness. You are not just a passive recipient in this prayer network. You, from this very bed, can become one of the most powerful intercessors there is. Why? Because you are in a position of total dependence on God, a place from which prayers are offered without pride, without self-sufficiency. Your prayer, born of weakness, has immense power. Your bed, which we have already transformed into an altar of worship, now also becomes your post of intercession, your watchtower. You have a unique and vital ministry to fulfill right from where you are. Think of the other people who are suffering in this same hospital. You do not know their names, but God does. You might hear a groan from the next room, or see the anguish on the face of a family member in the hallway. You can pray for them. Say, Lord, I do not know who is in the room next door, but you do. Extend your hand over him or her. May the calming presence that is with me also flood that room now. Think of the nursing staff. They run all day, dealing with pain, stress, and sometimes death. They need strength. You can pray for them. Lord, bless the nurse who just left my room. Renew her strength. Give her patience and a compassionate heart. Think of the doctors who carry the responsibility of life and death decisions. Lord, give wisdom to my doctor. Guide his hands, illuminate his mind so that he makes the best decisions for my treatment and for all of his patients. By doing this, something miraculous happens. You cease to be the center of your universe of pain and become a channel of God's love to others. Your focus expands. Your pain does not diminish, but it loses its power to define you. You discover that even in your greatest weakness, you can still be a blessing. Even confined to a bed, your spirit can travel throughout this hospital, touching lives, moving the hand of God, participating in the work of the kingdom. There is no more powerful antidote to loneliness and uselessness than becoming an intercessor. You realize that you are connected, not only with those who pray for you, but with everyone around you, in a web of mutual need and shared grace. This room ceases to be an island of isolation and becomes a strategic command center for the spiritual battle. This certainty that we are enveloped by an invisible community of prayer is a balm for the feeling of loneliness. Knowing that we are not forgotten, that we are sustained in love by so many hearts, connects us to something much larger than the four walls of this room. However, even when external loneliness is soothed, there is another type of isolation, an internal one that can be even more painful. It is built not by concrete walls, but by walls of hurt, resentment, and unforgiveness. For the idle time in a hospital bed, combined with physical and emotional vulnerability, has a peculiar way of bringing old ghosts to the surface. Wounds we thought were healed begin to ache again. Injustices we tried to forget are replayed in our minds in an endless cycle of pain and anger. Perhaps in the silence of this night, you are not only fighting against illness, but also against the memory of a betrayal. Perhaps you are fighting against anger toward someone who should have cared for you and did not. Perhaps your anger is against a system, against a circumstance, or perhaps in the most secret place of your heart, you are angry with God for allowing all of this. If this is your case, I want you to know that this anger is understandable. The pain that comes from another person's hand or from the hand of life itself is real and deep. But I want to invite you to examine these wounds of the soul with the same seriousness with which doctors examine the wounds of your body, because there is an undeniable connection between them. Unforgiveness is a poison we drink, hoping the other person will die. It is a heavy burden, a rock we carry everywhere, and it consumes vital energy that could and should be used for your healing. Holding on to a resentment is like keeping a wound open and infected on purpose. It contaminates everything around it. Bitterness releases emotional and spiritual toxins that create a constant state of internal stress and tension, the exact opposite of the environment of rest we are seeking for our restoration. The peace of God and bitterness cannot occupy the same space in the heart. For full healing to flow, we must have the courage to use the scalpel of the soul, which is forgiveness. It is essential, however, that we understand what forgiveness truly is, as there are many misconceptions that prevent us from taking this step. First, forgiving is not a feeling. It is a decision. You are not going to wait until you feel like forgiving, because that feeling may never come. Forgiveness is an act of your will, a choice you make, often with clenched teeth and tears in your eyes. It is an act of obedience to God and of self-love, because you are choosing your own freedom over your right to be hurt. Second, forgiving is not forgetting. The memory of the wound will likely remain, just like a scar from surgery. But forgiveness transforms the memory. Instead of being a memory that controls you, that fills you with pain and anger every time it surfaces, it becomes just a fact of your past, a scar that reminds you of the battle you won, but which no longer has the power to harm you. To forgive is to remember without feeling the need for revenge. Third, forgiving is not saying that what the other person did was right. It is not minimizing the wrong. It is not excusing the evil. On the contrary, forgiveness is only necessary because what happened was terribly wrong, unjust, and painful. Forgiving is not saying to the offender, "It is okay." It is saying to God, "Father, it is not okay. What happened was wrong, but I refuse to carry the weight of judgment and revenge. I release this case into your hands, which are the hands of the one and only righteous judge, and I choose to be free." And finally, forgiving is not necessarily reconciling. Reconciliation requires the offender's repentance and the restoration of trust. It is a process that involves two people. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is a unilateral act. You can forgive someone who never apologized. You can forgive someone who has already died. You can forgive someone with whom you will never have a relationship again. You do it not for them, but for you. To clean your inner house, to pull out the roots of bitterness that are making you sick. Knowing this, how can we practice forgiveness here and now? The process is simple, though not easy. It begins with the courage to look at the wound. Allow yourself before God, which is the safest place there is, to name the person and the pain, without mincing words, without minimizing. "Lord, so and so hurt me deeply when he said that, when she did that." Let the pain come. Cry if you need to. Honesty is the first step toward healing. The second step is to make the decision. This is the moment to use your will. Tell God, aloud or in the silence of your heart, "Father, my desire is to hate, is to wish ill upon this person. But because you ask me to, And because I want to be free, I choose, in this moment, to forgive, say the person's name. Your decision, moved by the grace of God, moves heaven and earth. The third step is to cancel the debt. Imagine that the person who hurt you has an unpayable debt with you. As long as you hold on to that promissory note, you are chained to them. To forgive is to take that note, tear it into pieces, and declare the debt canceled. It is an act of mercy. You are releasing the debtor. And in doing so, you discover that the prisoner who was set free was you. Visualize yourself placing this debt in God's hands and saying, Lord, this no longer belongs to me. Justice belongs to you. This process may need to be repeated. Tomorrow, the memory may hurt again. And you, patiently, make the decision again. Lord, I have already given this to you, and I give it again. I reaffirm my decision to forgive. Each time, the power of that memory over you will diminish. There are still two other important areas of forgiveness. Forgiving yourself. Often, the person we have the most difficulty forgiving is ourselves, for past mistakes, for bad decisions, for words that should not have been spoken. If God, who is perfect, offers you complete forgiveness through Christ, who are you to deny that forgiveness to yourself? Receive God's grace for your own failings. And finally, forgiving God. Not that God makes mistakes, but often we feel hurt by Him, for expectations that were not met, for prayers that were not answered in the way we wanted. Be honest with God about that pain, and then, in an act of faith, release to Him the right to be God, to have plans you do not understand, and trust in His sovereignty and His love, even when His ways are a mystery. The calming presence longs to fill every corner of your soul, but it cannot coexist with the ghosts of bitterness. Forgiveness is the house cleaning of the soul. It is the act of opening the windows and letting the light in, driving out the mold of resentment. By taking this courageous step, you not only free your spirit, but you create in your body an environment of peace that is essential for your full recovery. After we have opened the windows of the soul through forgiveness, a new light can enter. Purer air fills the environment of our heart, and peace becomes more accessible. However, even with a lighter heart, the prolonged stay in a state of vulnerability confronts us with one of the deepest questions of human existence, the question of identity. Who am I, now that I can no longer do what I used to do? Illness has a cruel way of stripping us, layer by layer, of the identities we have spent a lifetime building. If you were a successful professional, that identity is suspended. If you were the pillar of strength for your family, the caregiver, now you are the one being cared for. If your value was in your agility, your independence, your appearance, all of that is shaken. And in the void that remains, an accusing voice may whisper, "You are nothing anymore. You are useless. You are a burden." This identity crisis is one of the most painful facets of suffering. Today, we will gently confront this lie. We will dive deep into the truth of who you are, a truth that cannot be shaken by a diagnosis, that cannot be diminished by a physical limitation, and that cannot be stolen by any circumstance. The identities the world offers us are mostly based on our performance. We are valued for what we produce, for what we achieve, for our appearance, for our usefulness to others. They are fragile identities, built on sand. And a hospital bed is like a high tide that comes in and shows the fragility of these constructions. It is painful to see these sandcastles crumble, but it is also an opportunity to discover the rock upon which your true home is founded. Your true identity, your intrinsic and non-negotiable value, is not based on what you do, but on who you are in the eyes of your Creator. And who are you to Him? The first fundamental truth is, you are unconditionally loved. It is not a love you have to earn. It is not a love that increases when you are well and decreases when you are sick. The Bible tells us that God demonstrated His love for us in a definitive way Christ died for us while we were still sinners. Think about that. The value that heaven placed on you was measured in the highest currency of the universe, the very life of the Son of God. And that price was paid not on your best day, but on your worst. It was paid for you in your most flawed and weak state. If your value is so immense to Him in that state, how could an illness diminish it now? God's love for you is not a prize for good behavior or good health. It is a declaration of value over your very existence. You are loved because you exist. It is as simple as that. The second truth about your identity is, you are a son. You are a daughter of God. By believing, you receive the right to become part of God's family. This is not a poetic metaphor. It is a spiritual and legal reality. Think of a prince, the son of a great king. If the prince falls ill and is bedridden, does he cease to be the prince? Does his identity change? Of course not. He remains the heir to the throne, with all the dignity and privileges that implies. His condition does not alter his position. Likewise, your current condition does not change your position as a beloved child of the King of the universe. You may feel weak, but you are royalty. You may feel powerless, but you carry the name of the most powerful family in existence. Your illness affects your body, but it does not touch your royal identity. You remain a child with direct access to the Father, entitled to all the promises of His covenant. The third truth, which is especially powerful for someone in a hospital bed, is your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. This truth radically transforms the way you see your own flesh. It is easy to look at your body now and see it as an enemy, as a broken machine. But the Word of God invites you to see it as a sanctuary. Yes, this body that aches, that is weak, that may be wounded, is the very place that God Himself has chosen to make His dwelling. Think of the holiness of that. If a great king decided to visit your house, you would no longer see it as a simple house, but as an honored place. The Spirit of God dwells in you. Therefore, your body is not a defective piece of flesh. It is a sacred temple undergoing renovation. The builder is at work. The calming presence is not just with you, it is in you. This truth invites you to treat your body not with anger, but with reverence. To cooperate with the doctors and with your own rest as one who cares for a sacred place, preparing it so that the glory of God may be manifest through it once more. These three truths: you are loved, you are a child, you are a temple, form the rock of your identity. Nothing and no one can take that from you. But what about the ashes of your lost identities? What about the pain of no longer being the professional, the caregiver, the strong person? The prophet Isaiah, in chapter 61, gives us an extraordinary promise. He says that God came to give those who mourn a crown instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. God does not ignore your ashes. He does not ask you to pretend the loss is not real. He looks at your ashes, at everything that was burned and destroyed by this trial, and promises to create something new and beautiful from them. Your current weakness is the raw material for Him to teach you about true strength, which is dependence on Him. Your loss of control is the raw material for Him to teach you to rest in His sovereignty. Your inability to do is the raw material for Him to teach you the value of just being in His presence. A fire that seems to be consuming you is, in fact, a refiner's fire, which purifies the gold, burning away the impurities and alloys so that only the most precious and brilliant metal remains. You are not being destroyed, you are being refined. And the identity that will emerge from this process will be much stronger, more authentic, and more radiant than the one you had before, because it will no longer be based on the sand of your performance, but on the rock of God's love. Therefore, when the voice of uselessness whispers in your ear, respond with the truth. I may feel weak, but I am unconditionally loved. I may be dependent, but I am a child of the King. This body may be suffering, but it is a sacred temple. My value is not in what I have lost, but is secure in the one who has never lost sight of me. Rest in this truth. Let it be the foundation of your peace. As we establish our identity on the sure rock of God's love, a new kind of stability begins to emerge in our soul. We know who we are, and that knowledge prevents us from being carried away by every wind of despair. However, even with a secure identity, our anxious mind has a tendency to project itself into the future, trying to map a territory that is, by nature, unknown. That is where anxiety flourishes. It is not the suffering of the present moment that crushes us, but the weight of all the future sufferings we imagine we will have to endure. The mind begins to calculate. How much longer? How will I endure weeks or maybe months of this? And the bills that are piling up? And my family? What will happen to them? Each of these questions is like adding a stone to an already heavy backpack until the burden becomes unbearable. In this stage of our walk, we will learn together one of the most liberating spiritual disciplines there is, the art of living one day at a time. We will learn to trust in the rhythm of God's provision, who does not give us strength for a lifetime all at once, but gives us the exact portion we need for today. For this, we will return to the desert to learn the most practical lessons God ever taught his people. When the Israelites left Egypt, they found themselves in a place of total dependence. There were no supermarkets, no crops. They needed a daily miracle to survive. And God provided that miracle in the form of manna, a bread that fell from heaven every morning. But this miracle came with a very specific and, at first glance, strange instruction. God told them in Exodus chapter 16 to gather only the portion needed for that day. He forbade them from storing it, from saving it for the next day. Those people who came from a scarcity mindset and were now facing an uncertain future surely felt the temptation to save a little extra for security. But those who disobeyed and tried to hoard it discovered a powerful lesson. The next day, the stored manna had spoiled. It was full of worms and had a foul smell. What was a blessing on one day became a curse on the next when kept out of distrust. What is the profound lesson for us here? God was teaching them to trust. He was telling them, my faithfulness is not something you need to stockpile. I will be faithful today, and I will be faithful tomorrow. My grace is not a limited resource that will run out. Trust in the provider, not in the provision. Anxiety is, in essence, our attempt to gather tomorrow's manna. We lie in bed today, but our mind is already up in tomorrow's desert, trying to gather the strength, peace, and solutions for problems that have not yet arrived. And the result is the same as for the people of Israel. The manna spoils. Worrying about the future does not strengthen us. It makes us sick. It fills our minds with the worms of doubt and the foul smell of fear. Jesus echoed this same lesson centuries later when he taught us to pray. He did not say, "Give us this month's bread." He said, "Give us this day our daily bread." He invited us into this daily rhythm of dependence and trust. The Lord's mercies, as the prophet Jeremiah says, are the reason we are not consumed, and they are new every morning. With every new sunrise, a new portion of grace, strength, mercy, and peace is available to you. God's manna for your hospital journey is fresh every day. You do not need tomorrow's strength to get through tonight. You only need today's strength. And that, he promises, will never be lacking. The calming presence is not only a constant companion, but also a daily provider. The calm you need is not in having all the answers for the future, but in trusting that when the future arrives, his presence will be there with the portion of grace you will need. So, how can we translate this theological truth into a practice that calms our anxiety now? The first step is to learn to divide the giant. The idea of overcoming this illness, or facing months of recovery, is a terrifying giant. But the idea of living the next few hours with God's help is manageable. Stop looking at the entire staircase. Look only at the next step. Your mission is not to have strength for the rest of your life. Your mission is to have enough strength for your next breath, to drink the next glass of water, to endure the next hour. God always gives us strength for the next step, never for the next 10 miles at once. When your mind starts galloping into the future, gently bring it back and say, "My only responsibility is the now." One way to cultivate this mindset is through a simple morning ritual. Before your feet even touch the floor, or before the first nurse enters the room, dedicate the first moments of your day to God. Say a simple prayer like, "Good morning, Lord. Thank you for a new day, for your mercies that are new. I do not know what this day will bring, but I know you will be with me. I ask for my portion of your manna for today. Give me today's strength, today's patience, today's peace. Tomorrow I place in your hands, for it belongs to you. Help me to live only in today, with you." This small prayer adjusts the focus of your heart to the rhythm of God's provision. And what to do during the day when anxiety about the future attacks, for it surely will. Have a strategy. First, do not fight the thought. Just observe it and name it. Ah, there it is. The anxious thought about the hospital bill. By naming it, you distance yourself from it and strip it of its power. Next, anchor yourself in the present moment using your 5 senses. This is extremely practical and powerful. Ask yourself, what am I seeing right now? And describe it to yourself. I am seeing the sunlight on the wall. I am seeing the folds of the bedsheet. What am I hearing? I am hearing the sound of the air conditioner. I am hearing the soft music. What am I feeling? I am feeling the weight of my body on the bed. I am feeling the fabric of the pajamas on my skin. This mindfulness exercise forcibly pulls you out of the anxious fantasy of the future and grounds you in the reality of the present, which is the only place where God's presence can be experienced. And in the present moment, most of the time, you will find that you are safe. By practicing this discipline of living in the today, you will discover a new freedom. Anxiety loses its power when you refuse to feed it with worries about tomorrow. You will find that you always have enough strength for the day you are living in. And by living one day at a time, faithfully, in the presence of God, you will discover, upon looking back, that you have crossed the entire desert. As we learn to live in the daily rhythm of God's provision, receiving each day's manna, a large part of the anxiety about the future begins to dissipate. We anchor ourselves in the today. But this practice of living in the present confronts us with another challenge, one that is particularly acute in the hospital environment, the challenge of forced stillness, of boredom, of monotony. After the initial crisis passes, after the tests are done and a treatment plan is established, life can be reduced to long, endless stretches of nothing. Empty hours filled only by the ticking of a clock or the distant sound of a television. And for us, people of the 21st century, accustomed to a constant bombardment of stimuli, of notifications, of tasks, of entertainment, this emptiness can be maddening. Inactivity makes us restless, irritable, feeling like we are wasting precious time. Our first reaction to this boredom is to try to escape. We grab our phone, turn on the television, try to read a book, anything to fill the silence, to distract ourselves from ourselves. We are afraid of the quiet because it is in the quiet that the things we hide in the depths of our hearts begin to surface. It is in the silence that we hear the echo of our own insecurities, our regrets, our deepest fears. And yet, it is precisely for this reason that this time of forced stillness, which seems like a curse, may actually be one of the greatest gifts you have ever received. It is a divine invitation to an inner journey, to a kind of encounter with God that is impossible in the noise of normal life. The story of the prophet Elijah in the first book of Kings, chapter 19, teaches us a profound lesson about where to find God. Elijah was on the run, depressed and exhausted. He hid in a cave and waited for a manifestation of God. A powerful wind came that shattered the mountains, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake came a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came what the translation describes as a gentle whisper, or a still small voice. And it was there, in that almost imperceptible sound, that God was. We are like Elijah. We often expect to find God in the grand events, in the dramatic miracles, in the prayer answers that feel like an earthquake, and he can certainly manifest himself in that way. But more often than not, his most intimate communication with us happens in the whisper. And to hear a whisper, everything else must be silent. Your life out there, with all its noise and busyness, perhaps did not give you the chance to hear this whisper. This hospital room with its forced quiet is your cave. It is the place where the wind, the earthquake, and the fire of external distractions have been silenced so that you, perhaps for the first time, have the opportunity to hear the still, small voice of the one who has never stopped speaking to you. For this to happen, we need to redefine what boredom means. Instead of seeing it as empty time or wasted time, let us start seeing it as open space. Imagine that your life is a house filled with furniture, paintings, objects everywhere. There is no room for anything else. The illness came and did a clean out. It removed much of the furniture of busyness, the paintings of worry, the objects of tasks. The house seems empty, but in reality, it is open to be filled with something new. Boredom is the sacred space that God has opened in your schedule for an encounter without an agenda, without rush, without interruptions. How then can we occupy this sacred space in a way that is productive for our soul? The first practice is that of contemplative prayer. We are so used to praying by talking, presenting God with our list of requests and problems. Contemplative prayer is the opposite. It is the prayer of silence, of just being. It is sitting or lying in silence for a few minutes, not to ask for anything, not to think about Bible verses, but simply to rest in the awareness that He is there with you. It is like two friends who love each other, so much they can be together in silence without it being awkward. Each other's company is enough. At first, your mind will wander. That is normal. Gently, without blaming yourself, bring it back to the simple thought: God is here with me. I am here with Him. The goal is not to have a mystical experience, but to practice what Psalm 46, verse 10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." In the stillness, the knowledge of the heart deepens. The second practice is that of inner listening. Use this time of silence to listen to what is happening inside you. What is this time of illness teaching you? What fears still need to be surrendered to God? What dreams or desires might He be planting in your heart for the future? Let your thoughts and feelings come to the surface, not to control you, but so that you can present them to God as in an open conversation with a friend. The silence allows us to hear not only God's voice, but also our own inner voice, often drowned out by the hustle. The third practice is to find the sacred in the monotony. Life in the hospital is repetitive. The nurse takes your blood pressure. The medicine arrives at the same time. The food tastes similar. It is easy to become numb to this routine. But each of these moments can become a meeting point with God if you choose to pay attention. When the nurse touches your arm, feel there the touch of God's care. When you drink a glass of water, give thanks for the liquid manna that sustains you. As you look out the window, truly observe the shape of a cloud, the color of the sky. This practice of finding God in the most mundane details is called the sacrament of the present moment. It transforms boredom into a continuous liturgy of worship, where every small event of the day becomes a reminder of God's faithfulness and sustaining presence. The calming presence is, by its nature, a presence that invites us to stillness. It does not compete with the noise of the world. It invites us to withdraw into the cave of our heart, to hear it in the whisper. This time of apparent inactivity is not a waste. It is an intensive spiritual retreat. It is your opportunity to go deeper with God in a way that will leave permanent marks on your soul, long after you have left this room behind. Embrace the silence. Make peace with the boredom, for it is in this open space that the greatest treasures of intimacy with God are often discovered. This peace we find in the quiet, this ability to hear God's whisper in the silence, is one of the most precious treasures we can unearth in this place. It teaches us not to depend on external circumstances to find calm, but to cultivate it from the inside out. And as this peace deepens, inevitably, our thoughts begin to turn, even if timidly, toward the horizon, toward the possibility of discharge, toward the day of going home. And with this glimpse of freedom, a new and surprising set of emotions arises. Along with the joy and relief, a seed of anxiety may sprout. And now what? What will life be like after this? The hospital, which for so long was seen as a prison, can suddenly seem like a safe cocoon, a controlled environment where we are constantly monitored and cared for. Returning to the normal world means returning to a world of unpredictability, of responsibilities, and of new challenges. The journey, we discover, does not end at the hospital's exit door. In fact, a new and perhaps more complex stage is just beginning. Let us then, together, prepare our hearts for this transition. Let us pack our spiritual baggage for the journey back, ensuring that we do not leave behind the most important lessons we have learned here. The story of the people of Israel in the desert is, once again, our map. After 40 years of being guided by a pillar of fire and fed by manna, the day came to cross the Jordan River and enter the Promised Land. The journey in the desert was over, but the journey in the new land was just beginning. There, they would face new challenges, giants to defeat, walled cities to conquer. But they would also experience new blessings, a fertile land, the joy of building a home. Your hospital discharge is your crossing of the Jordan. You are leaving the desert of acute illness behind and entering a new season. There will be challenges, but there will also be indescribable blessings. The secret to flourishing in this new land is not to forget what you learned in the desert. So, what do we need to put in our return baggage? The first item, and perhaps the most important, is the precious lesson of dependence. Here on this bed, you learned the hard way that you are not in control. You learn to depend on God for the strength of each day, for the peace of each night. Upon returning home, as you regain your strength and your routine, the temptation will be to take back the reins of your life, to once again trust in your own ability. Do not fall into that trap. Pack your weakness in your suitcase. Remember it. Remember how liberating it was to live one day at a time, receiving the daily manna of God's grace. Continue to pray the prayer of our daily bread. Continue to place tomorrow in His hands. Your greatest strength, paradoxically, was discovered in your greatest weakness. Do not abandon that strength when you leave here. The second item for your baggage is your new perspective. Remember the clarity you gained here, away from the noise and the rush. The things that once seemed like giants, the worries about status, about the opinions of others, about small frustrations. From in here, they were revealed to be dwarfs. And the things you may have taken for granted, the company of those you love, the ability to take a deep breath, the taste of simple food, the beauty of the sun, were revealed to be treasures. Pack this clarity. Protect it carefully. The world out there will try to seduce you back into the rat race, into the anxiety of trivialities. Do not allow it. Make a pact with yourself that the wisdom you bought at such a high price will not be sold for trifles. The third item is the treasure of silent intimacy with God. You learn to find Him in the boredom, to hear His whisper in the stillness. This is a rare and powerful spiritual skill. Do not lose it when you return to the noise. Create hospital rooms in your daily life. Wake up 15 minutes earlier to be silent in His presence. Turn off the radio in the car and just be with Him. Find moments to be still and listen. The God who whispered to you in the solitude of your bed longs to continue that intimate conversation in the midst of your everyday life. Keep the silence in your suitcase. And of course, pack the habit of gratitude. When you return home, every little thing will be a miracle. The feel of your own pillow, the freedom to open the refrigerator and choose what to eat, the pleasure of a long shower in your own bathroom, the joy of walking from one room to another. Do not let these miracles become commonplace again. Celebrate them. Be thankful for them every day. Let gratitude be the seasoning of your entire new season. As you pack this baggage, you also need to be prepared for a specific challenge, the fear of relapse. It is a shadow that follows many who go through a health crisis. Every little ache, every strange symptom can trigger the panic alarm. How to deal with this? Remember the central promise of our journey. My presence will go with you. That promise did not have an expiration date. It did not expire at the hospital door. The same God who was with you at your lowest point will be with you in every follow-up appointment, in every new test, in every day of your future life. Your security was never in the absence of problems, but has always been in the presence of God. Therefore, when fear knocks, do not entertain it with catastrophic scenarios. Just remember the promise and anchor yourself in it, one day at a time. The calming presence is not an entity that dwells only in hospitals. It is your eternal inheritance as a son and daughter of God. The same presence that transformed this bed into an altar will transform your home into a sanctuary. The same presence that gave you peace amid the beeps of machines will give you peace amid traffic and the pressures of work. You are not leaving His presence behind when you leave here. On the contrary, you are leaving here as an ambassador of that presence, as a living testimony of His care and His faithfulness. You are not the same. You have been marked by grace in the place of your wound, and that mark is your strength and your testimony to the world. Prepare to go, not as a frightened survivor, but as a disciple trained in the fire, equipped with the deepest lessons that life can teach. With our spiritual baggage packed, full of the precious lessons learned in the desert, we feel more prepared for the journey back home, for the new season of our life. We carry with us the wisdom of dependence, the clarity of a new perspective, and the sweetness of a deeper intimacy with God. And yet, as we cross the threshold of our front door, as we try to resume life, we may be surprised by a wave of emotion we did not expect. After the adrenaline of survival subsides, after the routine of intensive care ceases, a different kind of silence can set in. And in that silence, an inexplicable sadness may surface. You might find yourself crying for no apparent reason, feeling a fragility that seems inconsistent with the fact that the worst, physically, is over. And with this sadness comes guilt. I should be happy. I survived. Why am I crying? What is wrong with me? I am so ungrateful. If you are feeling this, or if you come to feel this in the coming days and weeks, I want you to stop, take a deep breath, and listen very carefully. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you. What you are experiencing is not ingratitude. It is not a lack of faith, and it is not weakness. It is an essential and sacred part of your healing. You are grieving. Grief is the soul's natural response to any significant loss. And you, my friend, have been through an immense loss. You lost, even if temporarily, your health, your normalcy, your independence. You lost the precious and naive sense of invulnerability that we all carry before a major crisis. You lost time. You lost a version of yourself that existed before all of this happened. Your body and your soul had been through a trauma, a battle. And every battle, even the victorious ones, leaves scars and a trail of pain. Allowing yourself to mourn these losses is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is honoring the journey you have traversed. Our culture, and sometimes even our faith circles, teach us to suppress sadness. We are told to be strong, to look on the bright side, to stop crying and thank God. But this is not God's way of dealing with pain. Look at the example of Jesus himself. In the Gospel of John, chapter 11, Jesus arrives at the village of Bethany and discovers that his friend Lazarus has died. Jesus knew that in a few minutes he would resurrect him. He knew the story would have a happy ending. He had the entire bright side in his hands. And yet, upon seeing the grief of Mary and Martha, Lazarus' sisters, what does he do? The Bible gives us the shortest and one of the most profound verses of all. Jesus wept. Think about that. The Son of God, the Lord of life, wept. His tears were not a sign of a lack of faith in his own power. They were a sign of a heart that was alive, present, and sympathized with human pain. Your tears, therefore, do not distance you from God. They bring you closer to the heart of the Savior, who understands what it is to weep. Tears are a language that God understands perfectly. They are a liquid prayer. They are the words our soul uses when our mouth cannot articulate the depth of our pain or our longing. King David, a man after God's own heart, was not afraid to pour out his soul in tears. In Psalm 56, verse 8, he writes one of the most moving phrases in all of Scripture. You keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book. What a powerful image. God does not just see your tears. He collects them. He considers them so precious that he keeps them, like a treasure in a bottle. Every tear you shed in this healing process is noticed, validated, and valued by your Heavenly Father. They are not a nuisance to him. They are a memorial of your journey, a testament to your pain that he promises, one day, to turn into joy. It is here that we discover the great paradox of spiritual strength. True strength is not found in building high walls so that no one sees our pain. It is not in pretending that everything is fine when inside we are falling apart. That is the strength of the ego, and it is as fragile as glass. True strength, the strength that comes from God, is found in the courage to be vulnerable. It is the courage to admit, I am not okay. I need help. I am sad. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we tear down the walls of isolation and open the door for God's grace and people's love to enter. The Apostle Paul, one of the greatest heroes of the faith, said he learned to rejoice in his weaknesses, for it was when he was weak that the power of Christ was made perfect in him. It is in your fragility, in your honesty about your pain, that you make room for God's strength to be manifested most gloriously. The calming presence is not a presence that flees from your sadness. On the contrary, Psalm 34, verse 18, tells us that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. He runs toward your pain, not away from it. He sits with you in the midst of your ashes like a faithful friend and weeps with you. The calm he offers in this phase of healing is not the euphoria of happiness, but the deep peace of knowing that you are loved, accepted, and understood in your entirety, including your pain. So, what does this mean for you practically? It means you have permission to grieve. Give yourself the grace to have bad days. If the urge to cry comes, do not swallow it. Find a safe place and weep. Cry in the shower. Cry into your pillow. Release that pain. It is a toxin that needs to come out. Be patient with your emotional healing process, which is often slower than the physical one. Do not compare yourself to others. Do not put yourself under pressure to get back to normal quickly. Your normal is different now. And above all, be honest. If someone you trust asks how you are, you do not have to give the automatic "I am fine" response. Try saying, "I am recovering, and today is a little harder." Your vulnerability might be the gift that gives someone else permission to be vulnerable too. Embrace your fragility as a sacred place. It is there, in the broken heart, that you will find a God who is an expert at mending what is broken and creating beauty from the ruins. Your tears are watering the soil of your soul, preparing it for a new kind of flourishing, one that will be more authentic, more compassionate, and stronger than anything you have known before. As we welcome our tears and embrace our vulnerability as a sacred place, a deep emotional healing begins to take place. We make peace with our own fragility and discover the strength of a God who draws near to the brokenhearted. And as this healing progresses, we begin to look back on the journey we have traversed, no longer just with pain, but with a new perspective, that of a survivor. However, with this survival can come the temptation to want to erase the past, to want to close this painful chapter of our lives, bury it deep, and pretend it never happened. We might feel marked by the experience, afraid that people will now only see us through the lens of our illness with pity or with a veiled awkwardness. We feel that our story is one of weakness, and our desire is to distance ourselves from it as quickly as possible. But what if I told you that this story you so desperately want to forget is actually your most powerful possession? What if this chapter of pain and weakness is, in fact, the chapter that gives the rest of your life a new and profound meaning? Today, let us together discover how God, the master author, transforms our stories of suffering into testimonies of hope, and how your personal journey can become a source of healing for countless others. First, we need to understand that our life is not a series of random events. We believe in a God who is a storyteller, a sovereign author who is weaving a magnificent narrative with the threads of our existence. This season of illness and recovery was not a typo in your story. It was not a chapter God did not intend to write. It was an intentional part of the plot, a crucial turning point, designed to develop your character in ways that ease never could, and to reveal his character, his faithfulness, his grace, his constant presence in an undeniably real way. You are not just a victim of an illness. You are the protagonist in a redemption story that God is writing. And every good story needs a conflict to reveal the true strength of the hero and the goodness of their guide. The psalmist David, who went through numerous dark chapters in his story, describes this process beautifully in Psalm 40. He says, "I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God." Pay attention to that progression. First, the pit of despair, then the divine rescue. And what is the result? A new song, your story of how God met you in your slimy pit of the hospital, of how he heard you in the silence, of how he set your feet on a rock when you felt weak. That story is your new song. It is not a song you could have learned in the comfort of your home. It is a song that can only be learned in the valley, and it has a purpose. Many will see and fear the Lord and put their trust in him. Your story is not just for you. It is for the many who still need to find hope. The Bible tells us in the book of Revelation, chapter 12, that the saints overcome the enemy by two things, by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. The blood of Christ gives us positional victory, but the word of our testimony is what makes that victory practical and visible in the world. When you share your story, three powerful things happen. First, you experience a new level of freedom. Verbalizing how God helped you, how you learned to trust, how you found peace, solidifies that truth in your own heart. Telling the story from the perspective of faith seals your own healing. You cease to be the victim of the story and become the victorious narrator who points to the true hero of the plot, who is God. Second, you become a beacon of hope for others. You never know who is entering the same dark valley you just walked through. And for that person, hearing an abstract sermon on God's goodness might not be enough. But hearing your concrete, real story, full of honest details about the fear and the struggle, but also about the grace and faithfulness, is like finding a map in a spring of fresh water in the middle of the desert. Your story tells them, you are not alone. I have been there. And if God carried me, He can carry you too. Your suffering has qualified you for a ministry that no one else could have. Third, and most importantly, your testimony glorifies God in a unique way. A personal story of God's faithfulness in the midst of suffering is one of the most powerful apologetics there is. It makes theology come alive. It gives skin and bones to the promises of the Bible. It shows a skeptical and suffering world that God is not a distant idea, but a real and active presence in the lives of ordinary people. But how and when should you share such a personal story? It requires wisdom. The first thing to understand is that there is no rush. You do not owe anyone anything. The first step might be to simply write your story in a journal, just for you and for God, or perhaps share it with a very close and trusted friend. Broader sharing will come in its own time, when you feel whole and ready, not out of pressure, but out of a genuine desire to encourage others. And when you do share, remember that the goal is not to attract pity for yourself, but to draw attention to the greatness of God. The focus is not on the size of your trial, but on the size of your provider. And the scars? The physical, emotional, and spiritual marks that this journey has left? Do not hide them in shame. Remember Jesus after the resurrection. He appeared to His disciples, and His body was not a perfect, unblemished version. He still had the scars on His hands, His feet, and His side. And it was these scars that He showed to Thomas to prove it was really Him. The scars were not a sign of defeat. They were the proof of victory over death. Your scars are your testimony. They are the proof that you went through something terrible, but you survived. They are the map of your journey and the memorial of God's healing. They are your authority to speak of hope. A calming presence has accompanied you in every moment of this journey, not just to comfort you, but to give you a story to tell. A story that light shines brightest in the darkness. That peace can be found in the midst of the storm. That weakness is the stage for God's power. Your life is now a song, and the world desperately needs to hear your melody. This new song that springs forth in your heart, the story of God's faithfulness woven with the threads of your own life, is the legacy of your journey. It is the proof that suffering, when surrendered into the hands of the Redeemer, can be transformed into something beautiful and powerful. And now, as we approach the end of our time together in this long vigil, it is natural to feel a mix of emotions. A gratitude for the companionship, perhaps a peace you have not felt in a long time, but also, maybe, a small hint of uncertainty. And now what? Where do I go from here? It is as if we are saying goodbye to a guide who has walked with us through the darkest part of the forest. But the truth I want to seal in your spirit today is this: the companionship does not end here. The presence that has guided us does not leave. What you have found on this journey was not just a set of comforting words. You have found the very source of comfort, and He will never leave you. Let us, for a moment, climb to a mountaintop and look back at the path we have traveled together. Do you remember where we started? In that heavy silence of a strange room, oppressed by loneliness and fear. It was there that we clung to the fundamental promise that became our anchor. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. From that promise, we took one step at a time. We learned the art of surrender, trading our stones of worry for the lightness of His peace. We navigated the challenging silence of God, discovering that His quiet is an invitation to intimacy, not a sign of absence. We redefined our environment, transforming the bed of pain into an altar of worship, finding sacred purpose in the act of praising in the midst of trial. We looked at the foggy future, and instead of fear, we chose to plant the seeds of hope, trusting in the God of the seasons. We broke down the walls of isolation by connecting with the invisible community of prayer that sustains us, and discovered our own power as intercessors. We used the scalpel of the soul, forgiveness, to cut away the roots of bitterness that were making us sick, freeing ourselves by releasing others. We rebuilt our identity, not on the shifting sand of our performance, but on the unshakable rock of God's love for us, discovering that we are His beloved children, temples of His Spirit. We learned to live in the rhythm of grace, receiving each day's manna and refusing to be crushed by the weight of tomorrow. We found beauty in the forced stillness, transforming boredom into a sacred space to hear God's whisper. We packed our bags for the return, filled with wisdom and a new perspective. We welcomed our tears as a sacred language, finding strength in our vulnerability. And finally, we discovered that our story of pain is, in fact, our new song, a powerful testimony to the faithfulness of God. Do you see how far you have come? You are not the same person who began this journey. You have been forged in the fire, and you have come out of it not with the smell of smoke, but with the brilliance of refined gold. And now, all of this comes back, once again, to that central promise, the compass that guided our every step. Exodus, chapter 33, verse 14. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. This phrase was not just the theme of our long prayer. It is the promise for the rest of your life. It will go with you to your home, to your work, to your doctor's appointments, to the joys and the sorrows that are yet to come. It is your inheritance, your guarantee, your peace. And so, this is not a farewell. It is a commissioning. It is a sending forth. You are not simply returning to normal. You are advancing to a new normal as an ambassador of the peace you have found. You have been trained in one of the hardest and most effective schools of life, the school of suffering, and now you have graduated, not with a paper diploma, but with a spiritual authority that is only granted to those who have walked with God through the valley. You return to the world not as a victim in need of pity, but as a witness who carries hope. And what is this hope? It is the truth that has become our brand, our identity, the calming presence. This is no longer just the name of a channel or the concept of a video. It is the description of your new reality. You have learned to identify, cultivate, and rest in this presence. It has become your inner sanctuary, your portable refuge. You no longer need a physical place to find God. Wherever you go, you carry the sanctuary within you. The calming presence dwells in you. And now, to seal this journey and to send you into the next season of your life, I want to pray a final prayer over you. A prayer of blessing, of protection, and of peace. Just relax, take a deep breath, and receive these words into your spirit. Beloved Father, God of all comfort and Father of mercies, we come before you at the end of this long journey with hearts overflowing with gratitude. Thank you. Thank you because your promise is faithful and true. Thank you because you were present in every moment, from the first night of fear to this instant of peace. Thank you for the lessons we learned in the pain, for the wisdom that was born from difficulty, for the strength that was made perfect in weakness. Thank you for your sustenance, for your care, for your love that never failed. Father, I now lift up the life of your son, of your daughter, who hears me. I ask that your healing hand would continue to be upon his body, upon her body. Where there is still pain, may your relief come. Where there is still weakness, may your strength come. Where recovery is slow, may your patience and your perseverance come. May every cell, every tissue, every organ aligned perfectly with your purpose of health and life. I ask, Lord, for the healing of the soul. Heal the traumatic memories. Erase the flashbacks of pain and fear. Replace the images of suffering with images of your faithfulness. Continue your work of healing in the emotions, calming anxiety, dispelling sadness, and transforming grief into a compassionate strength. May his identity, her identity, as your beloved child, grow stronger each day, unshakable in the face of any circumstance. Bless, Lord, the new journey that begins, the journey beyond the hospital walls. May the same presence that was a comfort in the bed be a guide on the paths of life. May the lessons learned in the desert not be forgotten in the promised land. Give him, give her, the wisdom to live with a new perspective that has been won. Protect him, protect her from the temptation to return to a life of hurry, of anxiety, and of inverted values. May the peace that transcends all understanding guard his heart and her mind in Christ Jesus. Lord, I ask that you would transform his story, her story, into a powerful testimony. May the new song you have put in his mouth be heard by many. Open the right doors at the right time so that his story of overcoming and of your faithfulness can bring hope to other wounded hearts. May his scars, may her scars, become a beacon of light in the darkness. And now I bless you. I bless you with the peace that does not depend on circumstances. I bless you with the joy that is a fruit of the Spirit, independent of the absence of pain. I bless you with the strength that comes from dependence on God. I bless you with the wisdom to discern what is truly important. I bless you with a grateful heart, able to see miracles in the details of daily life. And above all, I bless you with the continuous, deep, and unshakable awareness of the calming presence. May you feel this presence in every breath, in every step, in every beat of your heart. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. Complete peace. Peace in body, in soul, and in spirit. You are not alone. You never were. And you never will be. Go in peace and take that peace with you. Amen. In our long journey together, we learned how to transform a hospital bed, a place of pain and loneliness, into an altar, a sacred space where we can find rest in the presence of God. If that experience brought you a little peace, know that you are not alone in this search. We walked through that valley together. But there is another kind of anguish that lives in the corridors of a hospital, the anguish of waiting. That feeling of powerlessness when the only thing we can do is wait for news. Our next story takes us to that exact place, to the uncomfortable chair of the waiting room, where time seems to stand still and fear tries to dominate every thought. There, we will discover together a strength you may not know you possess, anchored in one of the most powerful passages of Scripture for moments of crisis. It is a prayer that becomes a true refuge when the ground seems to disappear from beneath our feet. If you have ever felt the weight of that weight, or know someone who is going through it, I invite you to continue this journey. Let us discover how faith can give us strength not only to endure the weight, but to transform it.